Talk shoes. Recorded live.
Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we continue our series on horror movies on Netflix with the 1990 anthology Tales from the Darkside. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have, so warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, writer of the Ben 10 comic series from IDW, coming in trade paperback next month. With me from Austin is Drew Edwards, writer of the long-running comic Halloween Man, now out and starting a long series of them on Comixology from Monsterverse Comics. Say hello, Drew.
Hello, everybody out in podcast land.
Hello, hello. Also in Austin, Tony Salvaggio, writer of the Victorian Met comic Clockworks, which, by the way, is newly out on comics. It wasn't hardback, but it's now out on Comixology from Humanoids.
There's a Humanoids app, which it's on. Humanoids has a new app, and we're on that, and there's a deal on that too. So,
right. It's the Humanoids iPad app. Now I've got to get that. And let's see. And also, you're lead singer of the band Deserts of Mars. Say hello. Well, you already spoke up. So hello.
Yeah. Sorry.
and also in Denver with color commentary, as always, host of the mom-oriented podcast Pod Moms, attorney Julia Guzman. Say hello.
Buonasera.
Okay, more to the point, this is not just a series of horror movies on Netflix, but it's one where we pick movies that we're going to hoist upon one another. Last week's movie was by Julia. Next week's movie is by Tony. This week's movie, I double-dipped because I got a chance to do that, and they were playing Tales from the Darkside live in Denver as part of the Cruel Winter Horror Series, so we chose Tales from the Darkside. Okay. I'm so excited to talk about this movie. All right, according to Wikipedia, Tales from the Darkside, the movie, is a 1990 American horror anthology film directed by John Harrison based on the anthology series Tales from the Darkside. The film, shot in anthology style, depicts a kidnapped paperboy who tells 3 stories of horror to a suburban witch who is going to eat him, a la Hansel and Gretel. So sometimes people refer to this as supposedly intended to be Creepshow 3, a sequel to George Romero and Stephen King's anthology Creepshow. There may not be evidence for that, but we're going to talk about that. Tom Savini has said this is the real Creepshow 3. So let's get into it. Let's get first impressions. I want to go Julia, Tony, Drew, and then I'll go. Julia, lay it down. Have you ever seen this movie before? Your opening thoughts, keep it about 30 seconds, and then we'll move into the discussion.
I don't believe I have ever seen this movie. I don't know what I thought it was going to be, but I was like totally dreading it. I was like, I hate that I have to watch this stupid movie. And then I enjoyed it so much. I thought it was the most fun. So I did. I liked it a lot.
Wow, that's really wild. And I can't imagine what must have been going through your head. If I
don't
said,
know.
Hey, it's Sunday night. It's time for us to watch the movie. Tales from the Darkside is coming up. And I can't imagine what in the world he must have thought. All right, Tony, your opening thoughts.
I like the movie. I prefer the Creepshow movies, but this one's fun. I remember it's been a long time since I'd seen it, so it was kind of cool going back over that. So I enjoyed it. It's not my favorite anthology, but it's pretty solid, and it's cool to seeing these actors in this again. That was kind of neat.
And realize it, yeah. Actors are turning out that I didn't remember were there. Drew, what are your thoughts? Tales from the Darkside.
Well, unlike a lot of movies that were kind of part of growing up and everything in horror movies, this is not a major player in my childhood nostalgia. I didn't see it at the Trusty Graham drive-in. My memories of this movie mostly come from repeated late-night viewings from when we first got cable, and it was on USA Up All Night a lot, and it was on when Joe Bob Briggs had his show on TNT. It was a movie that he would run a lot on that show, and I like it. I think out of the anthology movies that came out in the 90s, I think this is probably like. I've always said that this gets a lot of bump from horror fans when it really should be Tales from the Hood. It gets more respect out of 1990s anthology horror films.
We could probably do a whole retrospective on 1990s anthology horror, or
well,
we could do anthologies and divide them up. Okay, so my opening thoughts. Let me just point out, I have not seen this movie since I watched it in the movie theater, back in 1990. So I was a freshman in college, and I remember the people I went to see this movie with just hated it. Nobody liked the movie, and I think I was influenced by that. But this time I was watching it, I just found it to be delightful. And anthologies are a rough gig. I mean, I watch a lot of anthologies because they're my favorite thing. But I mean, a lot of times there's like at least one story that you realize, well, that story was just a waste of time. There's nothing like that here. This is pretty much, this is quality, of the kind that we're discussing here from beginning to end. It doesn't waver in its consistency. So, all right, Julia, why don't you explain to us, well, actually, no, before we get into the frame, let's talk about the source of this movie. Can anybody tell me what's the deal with this related to Creepshow, and let's talk a little bit about how it measures up to that, because we had a great time discussing Creepshow about exactly a year ago.
Well, it is the big screen version of the Tales from the Darkside TV show, which in turn has attachments to both Stephen King and George Romero, who gave us the exceptional EC Comics homage Creepshow earlier in the 1980s, and then in turn Creepshow 2 later on. There's also Monsters, which is a forgotten kind of leftovers from Tales from the Darkside that's related.
What's wild is that right. To my knowledge, Tales from the Darkside got canceled, and then they did Monsters, which was also a horror anthology. But Monsters, despite what it was called, is really just a continuation of Tales from the Darkside. It's literally the same production company, same creative people, same format. There's really no reason to call that show anything but, for some reason, they just changed the name to Monsters.
Well, I always felt like maybe it was so they didn't have as much of a competition going on with the juggernaut that was Tales from the Crypt at the time period.
That's possible.
Right.
What's really wild is Tales from the Darkside, if you remember, and I didn't watch Tales from the Darkside a lot. I mean, it was on TV, and I think I was probably busy with other stuff, it's high school, whatever. But, I mean, it was on TV, which means that it had the standards and practices of TV. You didn't have any strong language, the gore would be off-screen. But sometimes the stories that I watched were often kind of creepy. So I think when I watched this movie, when I went to the movies and saw Tales from the Darkside in the movie theater, I was like shocked at the level of violence here. There's beheadings going on. There's people getting,
it is pretty high on the grody factor.
Any movie where somebody gets slashed down the back, where there's like a heavy duty slash, because nothing kind of sets off my visceral just shiver meter like somebody getting knifed down the back, because that's such a sensitive area, and that you're cutting through all those ribs and stuff. That's really grody, and I was shocked at the level of violence here, but I shouldn't have been. I mean, it was an R-rated movie, but I mean you're accustomed to kind of the afternoon Canadian cable look of the Tales from the Darkside TV show.
Although Tales from the Darkside TV had a couple of good Clive Barker stories. They did the Yattering and Jack, and I forgot what the other one was. They did one or two more, and I was always happy when I caught, one. They did a couple of the Books of Blood stories, which was always kind of crazy. Of course they had to pick which ones they could do because, as we were discussing earlier, Clive Barker, there's not a lot of stories you can put on TV.
Right.
But I thought Yattering and Jack was a good choice, and they did some cool stuff. So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this actually makes me want to go dig up Tales from the Darkside and kind of watch my way through that series, because that's really great. It looks like there's 90 episodes or something of
wow.
Tales from the Darkside.
Well, I'm surprised that's actually not on Netflix itself.
I thought it was at one point, but I'm not positive about that.
I mean, luckily through things like Fan and Can I Stream It, we can, you can always dig up places to see this stuff. Oh, I'm sorry, I've got the movie playing in my studio right now, and a girl's getting stuffed with flowers. I mean, to me, comparing this to Creepshow, and of course we haven't really gotten into discussing the segments of it yet, but comparing this to Creepshow, in many ways, I liked this better than Creepshow. I mean, there are let me just say, the thing of it is, the only reason this is not a Creepshow movie, let's say that I found it on the level of Creepshow. All you have to do to make it a Creepshow movie would be to add panels of comic booky kind of art in between, and that's all. But one thing that this movie does that Creepshow didn't do is it still has the sort of it still has the sort of way of looking at the world that I think is lifted straight from EC Comics, a sort of bent 10 or 11-year-old morality, where people who lie and cheat deserve to die, but people who kill also deserve to die, and there's basically anybody who does anything bad deserves to die in some sort of crazy demonic way. But it's all extremely simplistic, and there's something wondrous about that. But the script is way less hokey. I mean, there's way less of the sort of super broad, like overly corny humor and overacting that I think, affected. You disagree with me? Come on, think about the lonesome death of Geordie. What is it?
And I think that the overacting in Creepshow is completely appropriate for what they were trying to accomplish. Like it's a stylistic choice, whereas I'm sorry, like Creepshow to me, that's a classic of its kind. This to me is more of a. This is more of a pleasant footnote.
All right. Well, then let me.
Yeah, I think so too. I have to agree with Drew. Like to me, the difference it's tonal for sure. This one feels like it kind of comes from that TV, and I don't want. The weird thing is, like a lot of people have a problem with TV, and I don't, and so I'm not sure exactly what it is. Perhaps kind of the way it's shot, but I think the difference is the Creepshow definitely has an EC Comics feel. Like I think the broadness you're talking about is part of its charm in the way that it does what it does. And
well, it's true if you read those comics.
This one, I think Tales from the Darkside, the movie skews just in a different, like, I don't know. I definitely don't prefer it more, but I think it's really cool, and
it would probably do well to watch them together. In other words,
Creepshow just has style to burn. Like this is not nearly as stylish.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
So let's think about like this movie has the lot 249, which is a guy has a crate. The crate can kill people, and in likewise, there's a story just like that in Creepshow, where Hal Holbrook has a crate, and the crate can kill Adrienne Barbeau. And they, and in many ways, they're very similar stories, but when you think about it, and they both have really sort of grotesque, weird humor, but there's a lot more. It's so funny to use the word realism when you're talking about something about a mummy that Christian Slater has to dismember with an electric knife. But nevertheless, there's a level of realism here that is totally different from the way, if you remember Adrienne Barbeau, shrieking and always being shot with at these sort of weird angles with fisheye lenses and all that stuff. But as Drew pointed out, that's style, and it is style, and so
I think maybe that's the difference is
like
kind of lack of style. Like that's the thing is it's not so stylistically different from the show, I guess, and maybe that's what like.
Well, and maybe the word you're looking for is workmanlike.
Yeah. But what is awesome is you get to see all these stars. Like I was like, oh man, I forgot he was in it. Oh, he, like.
Yes.
it's star-studded. That I think Julia wanted to talk about it, but like it shows up, and I'm like, oh yeah, Deborah Harry is like is there. Like, wow, this is it starts awesome that way.
Well, yeah. So actually, let's. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I feel like a significant thing here is George Romero is an I may get flamed tomorrow on Facebook. George Romero is a real artist in terms of the horror genre, whatever you want to say about his relatively recent output. And who is this guy that directed this? Like who is he? Come on.
No, I'm with you. I have no idea. Unfortunately, he'll probably attack us on Facebook and tell us that we should be well aware of his amazing resume, which could indeed be.
I always feel bad though saying that because no artist wants to be called out, like that. But I think again it's good. It's just stylistically very different.
He's an executive producer now. He made Diary of the Dead. So he moved into he made Book of Blood, which I think is a Clive Barker movie. So he has a good resume. So that's cool. Wow. So
the thing is that he's like dwarfed by these writers. The writers, first of all, one of the stories is based on Arthur Conan Doyle's story.
Tales from the Darkside, right.
And you've got Stephen King, George Romero. He kind of just gets dwarfed by these also.
But I agree that what I was saying that I kind of liked, I think Tony is pointing out, you can like it, but it's not nearly as stylish, is that it's directed in a very competent, workmanlike sense that has almost no style at all. And that's true. It is, and in that sense, it is very TV. It is very, very, it does feel like this could just as well, if you took out the gore, this could just as well be a 90 minutes made-for-TV movie. And in fact, you never know. Sometimes that's actually the plan, and then something goes down a theatrical track, and we go, okay, well let's add some gore. And I should mention, by the way, that this is not other than it shares some creative forebears. It's not actually technically Creepshow 3. There's no such thing. Or maybe there is such a thing, but this is not it. I don't recall if there ever was a Creepshow 3.
There is a Creepshow 3 that does not involve Romero or Stephen King.
Oh, well, that's
yeah. I think I saw that a while back, but I can't remember it.
Yeah, that's why Savini was like, if you want to see a Creepshow 3, just watch Tales from the Darkside and pretend it's Creepshow 3, I guess. And that's fair enough. Creepshow 2 involves the story, I think it's called The Raft, and it's one of my favorite Stephen King stories ever because it's the one where these guys are camping and they get out on a floating raft in the middle of a lake and then an oil slick eats them. That's the short version of that story, but it is amazing. It is amazing to see these people on a floating raft grapple with the notion that there's an oil slick that's trying to grab them through the boards and all kinds. It's wonderful.
Which is the cover is one of those that we posted on the Facebook page. The cover's on it. Was it Twilight Zone magazine?
That was the cover it was the cover of Twilight Zone magazine based on the short story. So that's years before the movie.
By the way, the cat from Hell. The second story in the movie is actually supposed to be in Creepshow 2, and it got cut for budget.
Right.
Well, it's got that actor who's in the wheelchair.
William Hickey.
I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, he's so awesome. Like he fits Creepshow so well, and he fits. Yeah, he's great.
He is fantastic. That actor is so wild because he looks like he's not actually as old as he's always playing, but he always played an old man, and then he died. I don't know much about him. I remember he played the dad of in Sea of Love. He played the father, of Al Pacino, who provided Al Pacino with the poetry that would make up the fake wanted ads to catch the serial killer. Wow, I think that's the first time I've thought about the synopsis of Sea of Love. But
nice.
Okay, Julia, lay it on us. Give us the frame of Tales from the Darkside.
Okay, well, I wanted to talk about this because when the movie starts, And it's this gorgeous set. I mean, it's just a beautiful location in New York, I guess, where she's Debbie Harry of Blondie fame is driving in her little car. You know, I can't remember what kind of car it is, but it's a housewifey car. And driving down this gorgeous little main street, waving at everybody, and then she drives by the church, and the priest says, or the minister says, "See you in choir on Sunday," which I thought was the dumbest line, but still, I was like, okay, a little on point, but anyway, and then she drives by, and I turn to Jason, and she drives by the postman, and she's going to be like, "Hey, Joe," and she's like, "Hi, Mike." I'm like,
yes.
"Yep." And then, so then she gets home, and I'm thinking, well, this is fun. Then her house is this gorgeous house in the suburbs, and she's just, got this lovely life. And then she goes in, and she's got the bag, which Jason wrote at one point that when you have produce sticking out the top, it's announcing that it is groceries.
Right.
Which feels like the bag was announcing, we are groceries. So she's got her produce sticking out the top of the bag. She puts it down. She's talking to her friend, and she's talking about how she needs her to bring over champagne flutes when they come over for dinner. And if she doesn't have enough, they'll just drink out of Jello glasses. And I'm looking behind her, and she's got these, wine glasses hanging behind her. I'm like, or you could just use those, but whatever. Anyway, so it's kind of just a normal little story. And then all of a sudden she opens this, pantry door, and there's a kid in a cell.
Right.
And the kid is Matthew Lawrence, who I thought was Joey Lawrence for the longest time. I was like, that kid looks just like Joey Lawrence. This is his brother. And I'm just like, what? Because I hadn't seen the movie. So to me, that is such a brilliant opening, because I just, in no universe did I expect this woman to be keeping a kid in a cell in her kitchen. Oh, my gosh. And she's, bringing him chocolate chip cookies, and she's like, here's, I brought you some more chocolate chip cookies since you like them. And then she's all mad that he hasn't eaten the ones he just crumbled the ones she gave him before. And I gave you a book. She's so fantastic. She's so fantastic in this role.
Yes.
Because she always kind of looks, she just is so divorced from reality. And anyway, so she's going to eat the kid. She's the witch from Hansel and Gretel. She's going to eat this kid. She's going to cook him for dinner for the friends that are coming over. And so she's looking at the recipe of how long she needs to cook him based on how big he is. So he decides she's going to try to buy time by reading her stories, buy time to figure out how to get out, I guess, by reading her stories from the book that she gave him to read. And so that's the premise, is that the next three stories are the stories that he's reading to her. But I love the opening. I think it's fantastic.
It is. I mean, unless you grew up in a world where you knew better than to trust Debbie Harry, which is But
you wouldn't know. I mean, she sings in the freaking church choir.
Yeah, yes. Right. I love that. I have no idea where this is being shot. Does anybody know?
It says New York. It says the Bronxville, New York is the set. It's
really?
the location.
That's amazing. So it's lovely. I mean, it could be Georgia. It's just a lovely where they have the last haunting in Connecticut, to my knowledge, in fact. So
that do.
That's esoterica. We were discussing that earlier. A haunting in Connecticut too, which takes place in Georgia. All right. Yes. So Debbie Harry, fantastic. This is really this sets it up, and she's completely sort of, I don't know. I would never call Debbie Harry a great actress. I mean, maybe she would be, but here she's not intended to be. She's just extremely funny in the way she reads all these lines, and going, well, you have to be in the oven by 1:30, but okay, if you want to tell me a story. It's really, it's neat. It does feel like a skit in a sense. So, all right. So the first story that she tells us is one that we talked about that was very similar to one in Creepshow. And I should mention in this movie, other than that frame story, this anthology is a little unusual in that there's only 3 stories. So it gives us stories and it takes more time with them than would usually be the case. And that's a dramatic choice that I think works for me, because it means you can spend more time sort of setting stuff up. But I guess I'm a little bit lazy, because one of the reasons I really like anthologies is that I can get a story fast and I don't have to wait like a full 90 minutes or 2 hours to see how it pays off. So I feel the same way about anthology books. Okay, Lot 249 is the first story. Tony, would you like to, I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you like to explain Lot 249? And you were mentioning actors who you were surprised to see show up, and I think this one pays off more than as far as.
Oh yeah, well Christian Slater's in it. Steve Buscemi, like just I don't know, it's just cool. So yeah, I'm on the spot now. I'm just like, yeah, it's got my favorite tropes, which are one of my favorites anyway, mummies, and Steve Buscemi bringing back a mummy that takes vicious revenge on a guy who is he's straight out of the 80s as far as the jock who gets credit for something kind of guy.
He's literally the epitome of like an annoying frat boy. I can't even think of enough cliches to describe the way that the bully character who has he's like, I don't know, he's somehow or another they establish right away that the bully character has like stolen a fellowship that Steve Buscemi was counting on. But you're right. Yeah. He's got this blonde hair that's like poofing out like 3 inches in front of his forehead. He has a sweater that he wears sort of jauntily wrapped over his shoulders. Look, there was some comedian who said wearing a sweater on your neck is like wearing your underwear in your back pocket, and I always thought that was pretty hilarious. Let me just say that I don't remember ever seeing anyone actually wearing a sweater wrapped over their shoulders like that.
Really?
I think I have, but I try to avoid that. I tried to avoid that. Those people were not people I hung out with. So.
There certainly were preppies like that in my high school. So
that's a prep look that I don't even know if that look exists anymore. I mean,
well, more likely they were avoiding me though. Now that I think about it, like I say it as if like I would hang out with them, but it was probably more than
maybe you were just.
My life was much more Skippy from Trick or Treat, Yes. The movie, so. Fair,
I was a total crap.
In all fairness.
But I don't remember doing this, But yeah.
I feel like challenged to come up with a picture of you with a sweater wrapped around your neck.
See, you have to. If you find it, you have to post it on the page.
Oh my God, there is a picture of me with a sweater wrapped around.
Yeah, no, I know.
Oh my God. Yes,
you were that guy, Jason.
I totally forgot about that.
You would not have hung out with Tony and I in high school.
See, actually, Drew, Tony, Jason and I have had that discussion before. We probably would have hung out, but we've had several talks where I was like, Jason, I don't know if we would have hung out in high school. It's because we're such good friends now.
In fairness, I don't think my wife would have dated me in high school. So, sometimes. Little maturity, a little time,
Jason and I actually met in high school, so I can't say I wouldn't have dated him in high school.
Right.
She can fill her sentences with regret.
No.
But yeah. Okay. So anyway, you were laying it out for us. You've got
Steve Buscemi.
This is a small cast. Yeah.
Yes, to Steve Buscemi. By the way, and he's the really crappy jock guy. As aided by Christian Slater's sister. So it is a small ensemble cast.
Who's Julianne Moore?
Julianne Moore. She's the only person I didn't like in this movie. I thought she wasn't very good.
Yeah, she was. I mean, she did what she did. It was fine. She did aerobics and was,
But she just seemed kind of like emotionless. Like even when horrible things were happening, she didn't have an expression on her face.
Well, she had time to grow. I think she's doing all right now. I doubt she may regret it, but I doubt she's like, man. I don't think she thinks of Tales from the Darkside as she's doing other stuff. But anyway, so Steve Buscemi summons a mummy that wreaks havoc upon anybody that he wishes to, gets revenge. And, that's a very EC Comics kind of thing, so. And
absolutely.
It's pretty gory, like Jason was saying, whenever, the mummy picks up scissors and carves up, her back, that's pretty crazy. Oh, and there's some great scenes, too, because one thing it does have that, is very, as we compare it to Creepshow, there's a great scene where the mummy's trying to catch the guy, but he keeps missing, and, like, he's under the couch, and I don't know. Those bits were really fun as well. So it's for all the gore, it also has a fair amount of fun, and lightheartedness. And I think it's really hard to go wrong in an anthology when you do that. For example, I haven't watched all of VHS, and horror fans keep telling me I need to give it a second shot. But I found it joyless and really kind of, especially the first part, as much as I watched, was really like mean-spirited and joyless. And I was just like, why do I want to watch this crap? Like, why do I want to? I hate all these people. I would make this last 15 minutes, and they would all blow up or get slaughtered by a, whirlwind of chainsaws or something, and that would be the end of that. Like, I really disliked it. I think the combo of that's in this with the, and it's kind of a time as well,
I love the vision of a whirlwind of chainsaws, by the way. But there's really funny stuff here, like Christian Slater. When Christian Slater figures out that Steve Buscemi has sicked a mummy on his pals, and
his pal and his sister.
Right, his pal and his sister. So that's terrible. Then he says a lot of really funny things while he has Steve Buscemi tied up, and he slices up the mummy with like one of those like Sears and Roebuck electric knives.
Oh yeah.
And then his big mistake is that he doesn't go through on his threat of setting Steve Buscemi on fire.
Right.
Yeah.
So this story gets a button that's very Creepshowish. Where remember in Creepshow when the two zombies show up at the end to attack Leslie Nielsen. In this case, you have a similar thing where Steve Buscemi gets away and then he sicks two zombies on
the two zombies that his sister and his friend.
Yes. No, absolutely. And it's because Steve Buscemi has the power to resurrect the dead now because he hauled us. So, okay, let's review. He is a brilliant college. See, all of this is supposed to be seen, again, no matter what age you are, all of this is supposed to be seen through the eyes, I think, of like a suburban or rural 10-year-old with some comic books hanging out. And so it sees the world the way you might if you had almost no experience of it. So college is one of these crazy places with a lot of vines growing everywhere, and nerds are able to order actual Egyptian mummies and
to their dorm or whatever,
and unwrap them themselves, and there's scrolls inside, and you're in college so you can read hieroglyphics, and it's just this is very much like in Creepshow. Do you remember how they had so much fun playing with the way that Geordie would envision what an exotic place college was, and that the college professors would be mean to,
Oh, that is a good sequence. I also like that's a very of a time thing where when Steve Buscemi kind of makes his escape, he's in this cab that's just like a random metalhead guy.
Yes.
And I need to look up. It had to be somebody I was supposed to recognize, I think. And I forgot to look it up, but I'm just like, it's such a, he could metalhead / he could be, on his way to a horror convention because he had that kind of vibe too. But it's so like of a time to have that, like, hey, okay, we know our audience. This guy driving the cab, that's our audience. So we're going to put you in it. And I don't know, it worked for me. But it was it's such a weird randomness to it,
Yeah, I love seeing 80s punks too.
Oh, well, it says the cabbie says Ralph. Well, there's two. Yeah, Ralph Marrero. I don't know who that is.
Huh. Well, there's a cabbie in the first segment and a cabbie in the last segment.
Yeah, but this is the one I'm talking about, the Lot 2
right.
Yeah. But I mean,
he's in other stuff, but he's not. He's in. He's not anything. Yeah. No, I don't think you're supposed to know him. I think he's just, like you said, that guy.
It's just so. But it's just so, what a weird, like, of a time thing. Like, of course, when you call a cab to take you far away, it's a, freelance cab guy who's a metalhead.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. It works.
Did he have a mohawk? In my mind, he had a mohawk.
He's bald. But he had, like, chain earring, and just his whole cab is, like,
Right.
you know, metal/horror fan.
Sweet.
I'm sure I thought that. I mean, I thought it was cool this time, but I'm sure I thought it was cool then too when I first saw it.
It's a nice detail. I wonder what college they're filming this bit in. Is this also in Bronxville? I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, it's definitely supposed. Oh, wait, don't they say, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no other filming
supposed to be like
locations
Harvard?
mentioned.
Well, I mean, there's some more that I'd like to look up as far as the locations where they're filming. I didn't get a chance to research that, but I'd love to know like where, you know, if this is completely a set, this apartment building that they're in, the house that Steve Buscemi's friend and sister live in is a really great house. I mean, it's this huge sort of mansion in a really lovely sort of wooded acreage. I mean, it's exactly the kind of snooty rich bitch kind of thing that again we saw in Creepshow, and that is really supposed to set off all those 10-year-old alarm bells about what richness is about and what being a poor nerd is about and all that stuff. I just love the naked morality of these things, you know, and
right.
It's cool. It's cool to watch it. All right. So next comes Cat from Hell. And Cat from Hell is, Julia, would you like to set up Cat from Hell for us, or would you like me to?
Well, I mean, Cat from Hell, like I said, is a story that was supposed to be in Creepshow 2, and then they put it in here. It is Buster Poindexter. What's Jason's like? What's the actor's name? You kept telling me the actor's name, and I'm like, I'm sorry, he's just Buster Poindexter.
It's the lead singer of New York Dolls.
Yeah, but what's his name? The actor?
Oh, geez,
David Johansen, right?
Yeah.
Right. He has shown up at let's see, the other guy's name is
William Hickey.
His name. Yes.
The old guy is William Hickey.
The giant house where he used to live very unhappily with three other old people, and who have now come to their not so untimely demise, but unfortunate demise, because of this cursed cat that has become part of their lives. And so he wants the cat dead, and so he hires an assassin to come and kill the cat, and describes how the cat has murdered the rest of his housemates, and it's really pretty horrific and gruesome and horrible. So then he leaves, Mr. Hickey leaves, and leaves the Buster Poindexter to kill the cat. And the cat, I mean, I'm sorry to skip to that part, but the way the cat kills him is one of the most horrific things I have ever seen in my entire life. It was so gross. He actually eats his inside.
Wait.
No.
Before we get there, let me just say that David Johansen just kicks ass in this role. I mean,
he does.
Is he slick, man. I had no idea that first of all, David Johansen is a very, very physical actor. You know, when you watch him walk, he has a walk that's very sort of dancey and fluid. When he sits, he uses sweeping hand gestures. His fingers are curled. You know, he's a very pantomimish kind of actor. He's good. You know, this is the second movie we've done, by the way, on this show that had David Johansen in it. Because remember, he played the Ghost of Christmas Past in Scrooged, and that was a totally different, crazy role here. But here he's playing a working class dude who's become a fantastic assassin and wears a really great suit. He's wonderful. He's like something out of the 30s, and you know.
And he even manages to, between action scenes, somehow manages to comb his hair again, which cracks me up.
Yes.
It's like he's like this horrible encounter with the cat, and then in the next scene he's like sitting waiting for the cat. He's got his hair combed again.
Yes. Yeah. So okay, it becomes a cat. That's a terrible. Not intended. No pun intended or anything. But it becomes a cat and mouse game as he chases the cat around the house. But the cat basically. You know, he tries to shoot the cat, he misses the cat, and the cat is always, like, jumping up and just slashing him. So he's totally losing to the
he actually,
damn
like,
cat.
pretty much tries to castrate him at one point. But I guess he wasn't that badly injured because then he
No.
to continue the story.
My impression was the cat managed to tear up the crotch of his pants, but didn't actually.
No, he was in a lot of pain, so clearly he was doing something more.
I thought he was just afraid.
No.
I have
yes,
to say,
you want to weigh in on this one?
This is the one that I always remember very, very vividly from this movie, and it is the one the one story in this movie that I would actually say is scary. Like
yeah.
just the business of being in this big creepy house with this. I mean, the title says it all. This cat from hell. I mean,
yes.
it's you know, and I owned a big mean cat when I was a kid. I had this cat. This always makes me think of I had this cat Frost growing up. He was huge, and he was like light gray. He didn't look like this cat at all, but he had the temperament. I remember one time my dad got mad at him, and he threw him into a neighbor's yard, and the neighbor had a Rottweiler, and I think he was thinking that the Rottweiler was going to beat up Frost pretty good, and instead our neighbor came pounding on our door, and he said, "You should have seen what your cat did to my dog's face." And that's what this cat makes me think of.
Awesome.
He's yeah. So the cat, as Julia pointed out, the cat, who by the way is an angel of death. Basically, the cat is there on a mission of vengeance because
it's pretty literal. Literally the cat from hell. Like there's you think, oh, that's the cat from hell. He's really bad. Like no, it doesn't get any more literal than that.
He's a demon. Yeah.
And it's because Hickey, you know, these vapid old rich people have gotten super rich through drug tests that have involved a lot of cats, and so they've killed like 5,000 cats in their drug tests. And so this cat has come from the depths of hell to avenge.
Vengeance demon. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when he all right, now you may tell us, how does he manage to finally? By the way, he kills the other people though. He kills
everybody.
He kills one person by tripping her and she falls down the stairs, and one guy by distracting him while he's driving and the car flips over.
And then asphyxiates one.
He asphyxiates one by grabbing onto the back of this woman's neck and putting his stomach on her face until she suffocates. But yes, when the hitman comes after him, how does the cat kill the hitman?
Oh my God! He goes inside of his mouth and like consumes his inside from the inside. It's just the most horrific thing I've ever seen. And so then his stomach is kind of like bubbling around, like there's something inside, like from Alien. And then he just goes quiet for a while until Hickey shows back up, at which point he reemerges from his stomach and out his mouth to kill Hickey. It's oh my God, it's so horrible. I forgot how horrible that was until I was
having seen enough horror movies, it's such a weird and not particularly well executed. Like the cat is so fakey fake. Like
that's true.
To me, it was
I'll be honest,
dark
Tony.
humor.
I didn't actually look. I wasn't actually looking.
Oh,
to
me,
so
it's such dark. It shifted. For me, it was a lot less like, oh my God, that's horrific, which it is horrific. But it shifted a lot more towards just dark, crazy humor because of how it's executed and what happens. Like it's just like, wait, the cat is clawing. What? And you look at it like you actually are watching it. You're just like, this is ridiculous. And while I understand, like, and I think that it's this, and this is again, I think, you know, partially why it's so good to have you on the show. Because for me, and watching it again, I was just like, oh man, for real. But so the horrific nature of it, even though it is very terrible, was eclipsed by the fact that it is a horror gag, if you will.
Right.
Well, this is the secret about me, is that I watch all those scenes through my closed fingers. Like I just kind of glance a little bit.
It's very. Fun. Doesn't this remind you a lot of yet another thing in Creepshow? Remember when it was F. Murray, right? It was E.G. Marshall. E.G. Marshall gets basically he's surrounded by thousands of cockroaches, but they end up all going in his mouth.
Well, see now the cockroach thing was done again. It's a totally different. That is disgusting. Like that's absolutely like that's terrible. But like the cat thing is done. The cat thing, the way it's done and how it happens becomes a lot less. Like I said, to me, like watching tons of horror movies becomes a lot less like the roach thing, which although is unreal, like, a person would be eaten by tons of roaches.
Right.
There's not a cat ever that's going to shove itself down someone's throat and then bust out alien style. Like,
yes.
That's you know, it's
well,
just,
what's
it's
weird
a different
is that,
sort of gag.
is that he's more tapeworm style. This cat, you know, if we're going to go all Marvel no prize on it, this cat must possess some strange elasticity powers because, yes, if you think about
and he doesn't have to breathe, apparently, because you can't breathe in him.
No, I mean, he stays down there dormant until the magic clock starts running again when Hickey comes back the following day. The clock strikes 12, and then the cat wakes up and comes back out again. But, I mean, yeah, it's really more of a demon than a cat, basically. You know, it's you know, because if you think of the plausible dimensions of David Johansen's actual jaw, there's no way that a cat can physically move down that jaw. It just can't happen. You know, I can't even believe I'm discussing this.
Although I've seen cats get into really small spaces, so it's possible.
Well, hamsters, too, because, you know, they can flatten out. So maybe if this had been a hamster, that would be
oh, really? That's grosser than the cat? That's funny.
All right. So that's The Cat from Hell, and I totally believe that that is a Stephen King story. And the funny thing is the dialogue in this one is really kind of like mincy in that way that Stephen King's rich characters often are, you know.
Right.
You know how they.
Well, I mean, you could sub the dad from you know, any of the people from the birthday.
Yes.
Episode of Creep Show. Like, you could sub that. Like, if this place was next door to that to that mansion, you'd be like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, yeah. There's a snootiness. There's a way that Stephen King imagines snootiness to be that probably has nothing whatsoever to do with real snootiness and more to do with the popular American imagination of what snooty people are like.
Well, in that case, also, I guess the jock prep guy could be the son of the guy in the wheelchair, and we would totally believe that too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right. So the last one, interestingly enough, this is the one, Drew, that you said you remembered the best, which is called Lover's Vow, and so just to set this one up, and we can get into it. Lover's Vow, according to Wikipedia, and actually I totally believe this is true because you'll read occasionally Chinese and Japanese legends of somebody who comes across a fox spirit or something like that. You know, a hunter in the woods comes across a fox spirit, and then later a beautiful woman appears and becomes his wife for years. But it turns out that the wife is actually the fox spirit that met him, and maybe she helped him, or what, you know, or maybe he helped her and she has some kind of debt. But regardless, there's always some kind of test that is very minor that the husband has to fulfill. But if he blows it, then she has to go away, and sometimes with horrific results. And that's what this story is. But I totally I just took my brain off, and I didn't realize it until somebody goes, you know, this is a lot like those you know, Asian ghost stories, and that's true. So the story is called Lover's Vow, and what you have is the dad from Dexter, and now I've forgotten the name of the actor, but sorry, James Remar. You have James Remar as an artist who's having a hard time selling his work, and he's out getting drunk with the last $20 that his agent gave him when his agent dumped him, and he leaves the bar, and a gargoyle comes down from the sky and cuts the bartender that he's with to little pieces, but doesn't kill him. And for reasons that escape me, I don't know how we get through this plot point, but the gargoyle says, you know, don't tell anybody you ever saw me. Okay, fine. And then a few, you know, minutes later, walks by, the gargoyle goes away, and then around the corner, like Clark Kent, comes Radon Chong, the beautiful actress, and she needs some help. She's trying to get somewhere. James Remar says, hey, come by my place. You can use my phone, whatever it is. And they hook up. And
wait, you have to say, though, that, I mean, he pretty much, like, she's walking down the thing, and he, like, grabs her, shoves her up against the wall.
Yeah.
And
to
like,
protect her from the gargoyle.
Yeah, but she didn't know that, supposedly, theoretically.
Right.
However, even me watching this, not knowing anything about the Chinese ghost stories or whatever, I was like, well, obviously that's the gargoyle. I mean, it was like pretty obvious. So that part to me was.
What made you sure that this was the gargoyle?
Because the gargoyle goes away, says, promise, 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 you'll never ever tell anyone. And then this beautiful woman shows up who doesn't seem to be scared or anything and doesn't seem to have seen anything. So I'm like, obviously that's the gargoyle, and she's going to now make sure that, just watch him and make sure that he keeps the promise. It just seemed obvious. It just followed.
I remember seeing it when I was younger and going, yeah, well, I guess there's the gargoyle. Like, I don't think there's ever I don't remember there ever being a point where I was like, no way, I can't believe that she's
Are they really trying to do that? Are they really trying to be that coy about it?
I don't think so.
There's something very, apparently, deliberate, but there's something very folkloric about this whole setup, and that sort of line of logic really follows through that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't matter if we don't know. I mean, I can't remember a time when I didn't know, but I'm trying to decide if I would know and so if I assume that I might be as observant as Julia, or at least half as observant as Julia. Yeah, I guess Ri-Dan Chong is a bad guy, or at least not really a bad guy, just a gargoyle or a fox spirit or a Yuki Onna or whatever the heck.
She actually seems to be pretty distraught about it.
Yeah.
I think she actually prefers to be a human, and somehow, you're saying for some reason that's unknown, somehow she has gotten, I think, an opportunity at this point to become human. Like somebody in the powers that be has said, okay, now's your chance to be human if you can get a human to not talk about your gargoyle spirit or whatever.
Right.
She seems really sad to have to go back to that.
Yeah.
Well, this is why this is the one out of the three that I like the best, because this is a very sort of universal monster. You're a monster, and that there's going to be certain things that come with being a monster, but there's also this sort of sadness and inevitability behind it. And I definitely out of the three, this is my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. What you mean, and that touches me. What you said, because it's true. I mean, I know that your fondness for the universal horrors is usually because of whatever pathos they bring. The Larry Talbot. He's going to be killing people. He's going to be chopping people up, but there's a real sense of mourning for a life that he's missing. And in this case, Ri-Dan Chong gets to live it for 10 years. She moves in with James Remar, and they have two little lovely children, and she also has great connections in the art industry, and so she hooks him up with riches. All of this, you're right, is totally folkloric. It all feels like a ghost story or Rumpelstiltskin or any number of those stories where all kinds of really great extreme stuff is going to happen, and the hero has to just do one thing.
How does she have connections in the art industry if she's been a gargoyle? I mean, does she go back and forth before that point?
It's probably just because she's magical in some way, and that she can make these things happen.
I think she just invents all of this. I think she can even change. She can hypnotize. I've never thought about that ever in my life, but it doesn't bother me.
I just thought I thought it was because more like she was a demon, and therefore would have all kinds of magical demon demon influences that she had.
I mean, think about it. If this were like a 90-minute thing, or if this story were an entire season of a television show, we would find out that between meetings with her husband, she's actually also going to the art gallery and threatening the children of the lady who owns the art gallery and so forth to get what she wants. So she might be doing all kinds of conniving stuff. We just have no idea. Anyway, 10 years go by. Things are great. We're making a lot of money with our art. We got beautiful kids. Our agent is back, and then as an anniversary gift of sorts, the artist says, "Listen, I want to share with you, my secret, the one thing I haven't told you about." And he takes out a sort of maquette that he's made of this gargoyle that he saw, and that's basically the end of the wonderful life that they have. she just starts screaming. She's like, you promised you wouldn't tell, and she goes through this really, really horrendous transformation scene where her skin splits all apart and she becomes a big demon gargoyle. And Joy, I think you were a little disturbed by the fact that of course also means that the lovely children also turn into demons.
Oh, that made me so sad. Because the little girls are in their room. They're like our girls' ages, and they just start screaming. And then they come out and they're gargoyles, and they just look so sad. There was actually one of the cutest, puppet kind of effects I've ever seen. The little gargoyle children, but they're just like hugging their mom. Their mom has to kill the mom has to kill the dad. So they see that, and then they're like, so they're dealing with all this trauma of seeing their dad be dead, becoming gargoyles, seeing their mom as a gargoyle, and then they go through the glass ceiling, and then apparently they become stone gargoyles. Which I was like, well, why does it have to be stone? Like, what?
Oh, maybe they're just stone at certain times of day, and they can become
like weeping angels or something.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, nice Doctor Who reference there. By the way, it was cool. I have no idea, and I love that you can project on the gargoyles that they're so sad. I'm sure they are very sad. It is. I don't know. That is disturbing. But one presumes that once they become gargoyles, they instantly receive a whole lot of gargoyle instinct and stuff. So it's kind of okay. You're right that they're cute puppet gargoyles. But
quick plug. I just have to say the Museum of the Weird has one of the here in Austin has one of the full-size gargoyle animatronic puppets in their collection from this movie.
Wow. That is
oh man, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Great. All right. So and that's the final sequence. And that probably is, to be honest with you, the most artistic of the sequences. It's played much more like a straight movie. There's none of the sort of there's none of the Stephen King-ish kind of comic booky class warfare stuff, and there's none of the over-the-top dialogue. It's like the other two are sort of aperitifs, and this is the real entree. This is the story that's played straight, and it's lovely. I mean, it's really different from the thing that we just saw before it, with a cat stuffing itself down David Johansen's throat. So I don't know. That was pretty neat. Anyway, we get back to the wraparound story. Julia, what happens in the wraparound story?
So, well, I mean, just like in Hansel and Gretel, of course, the witch is going to have to go in the oven. The kid can't be the one to go in the oven. So the kid manages to write the last story. Like, he's like, well, there's one more story. It's about this kid named, what is it, Timmy or something, whatever his kid's name is. He's like, this kid named Timmy who's being held by this woman in the kitchen or whatever, and she goes, oh, that's your story. She's like, you're so silly. And then he's like, and he has these marbles in his pocket, and he pulls out the marbles, and she's coming at him with a knife, and he goes, and he throws the marbles, and she slips and falls, and she slips back on these horrible spikes that she has for whatever purpose, I don't know what.
Oh, they're for stitching. They're for
right,
yeah.
sewing them up, right. So she falls back on those, and then he's able to grab the keys. But as he's he's narrating the story. He's like, and he gets the keys, and he's like trying to reach the keys, and he gets them, and he sets himself free and pushes her into the oven. And as he's pushing her into the oven, and then she screams, because of course it's a fire oven. It's not a regular oven. It's a convection oven. It's like a fiery oven. So she screams, and then he closes it and runs out. And I'm just like, what? This is the craziest story I've ever seen. And then, of course, he's all happy. Like, that. There are some happy endings after all. It's just so surreal. It's such a bizarre story.
It is truly. I mean, you know that's coming, and
yeah.
But it is pretty cool to see the witch get. Although you have to wonder, is how long? You wonder how long it'll be before the neighborhood sees that the nice lady who sings in the choir and knows the name of the postman is missing.
Well, I mean, who knows? He might have already eaten Gretel, whoever, the contemporary.
Oh,
Gretel.
Yeah,
like.
I guess you're right. Boy.
Or, any number of children's bones that they'll find.
Yeah. No, I mean,
they're
going to find some.
Well, and are these friends that come over also cannibals? I mean, do they know they're eating children, and will they continue this practice of cooking the children for their dinner parties?
One would assume it would be a coven of witches.
Yeah.
I guess you're right, because she would have a hard time. Like, first of all, she talks about how she's going to stuff him with like onions and stuff, or whatever it is. So I guess they are witches, and she's going to serve up this little kid, and that's going to be part of it. So, there's a whole other story they're going to get to this house. They're going to have to go, darn it, Blondie's been killed. We're going to have to, cover that up. Okay, Willard, call your friends. We're going to have to take care of Blondie's body. And somebody go get that damn kid. And
right.
And that's what has to happen.
Well,
next.
I mean, as far as we know, it could also be the priest,
Yeah.
Hey, I'll be over to eat children later.
The whole church choir. The whole church choir
Sure.
is the coven.
Yeah.
Yeah, could be.
So this kid's nightmare may not be over,
There's a whole thing where it's Timmy versus the witches that we're missing out on.
Wow,
And
that's like Phantasm. Really.
We should write that story.
He teams up with the local milkman who's played by Bruce Campbell, and
or Reggie Bannister would work.
Or Reggie Bannister,
yeah.
that would be. Well, he was an ice cream man.
That's right.
Totally,
but either way,
totally different. Totally different.
Well, what I'm saying is he would work in lieu of Bruce Campbell. I would also cast Reggie Bannister because he can do it.
It'd be interesting to bring in somebody sort of that you don't expect. Like you could get, I don't know, Screech from Saved by the Bell to turn up.
Actually, this is
Joey Lawrence. Hey, bring in Joey Lawrence for a little continuity.
Joey Lawrence is looking lean and mean and bald. Yeah. He's got
Jack
his own
Black,
show.
perhaps. You could do a comedy.
Yes.
Jack Black.
I really like this idea of the little kid having to fight a whole town of Satan people. That's
like a dark humor version of Race with the Devil.
Oh man! First of all, I'm so happy that you mentioned Race with the Devil.
That movie rules and is scary, legitimately,
It's totally unknown. It's not like people will list Race with the Devil among their favorites, but boy, is it fantastic! I mean, that's really, really great.
It's hardcore. It's also
Race with the Devil,
real deal. Yes, there's our first recommendation of the night. Get a hold of Race with the Devil, because it's also totally not the reality, but the actuality of when people were worried about Satanists and stuff. When the true people who could run things who were Satanists were the lawyers, the cops.
Yes.
You know what I mean? The people who run the shows and have the wherewithal and wealth were closer to the eyes wide shut form of people, and a lot less of meth addicts and metalheads and people and nerds playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Devil is very much like sort of that same sort of Ruth Gordon Satanism that in Rosemary's Baby and that we just saw in the movie last week.
Ruth Gordon Satanism as opposed to LaVey Satanism.
Right. That's right. All right. So anyway, let's get our final thoughts on Tales from the Darkside. I kind of feel weirdly enough, we could just keep talking about this movie forever, which is so strange, But final thoughts on Tales from the Darkside. We'll keep that short, and let's come around for endorsements if you have any. So we went. Julie, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Final thoughts, Tales from the Darkside.
I think I've already said everything. I don't really have much else to say. It's a fun picture. I always think of Adam whenever I say that. No, this does not deserve to be called a picture. It's a fun movie, and it's got some great. The cast is awesome, and it is a little gross in some places, but it's very entertaining.
Yeah. Tony, final thoughts.
I enjoyed it. It was cool seeing it again. It never really stuck with me, but then once I had started watching it again, I was like, oh yeah, this has all the good stuff I like. So it's really enjoyable. I still agree with Drew that Creepshow is my jam as far as these go. but this one's fun, you know. And it's a good extension of, you know, what was going on the TV, and they kind of got to stretch, you know. This, you know, a lot of this would never pass standards and practices. And so it was cool to see, you know, hey, well, what do we do, you know, when we want to make a movie full of the stuff that we like? And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Drew, any final thoughts you want to add to that?
You know, I like Tony. This is never going to top Creepshow, or for me, even like Twilight Zone the movie, or as I said earlier, Tales from the Hood, which we should totally do because I love that movie. But you know, this is it's a good anthology movie, and it's, you know, it's just like Julia says, it's just a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. My final thoughts, like, it's really neat to kind of see all these actors show up, like Steve Buscemi, looking, you know, real young, and you know, it's a different Steve Buscemi than you're used to. He's a young nerd, and you realize, my God, that guy's been in Hollywood a long time, you know, and all these Debbie Harry, who's really great. I don't think I've ever seen her acting in anything before, so it was really cool to hear, like, a Heart of Glass girl, you know, about to cook a boy in an oven. So this was a delight. I do like this movie better than Creepshow, but I love Creepshow too. So it narrowly edges it out. I would, and if we're going just for artistic, then I would put Creepshow first. This certainly before Creepshow 2, but I think you could probably. It would be great to just watch all three of them like on a Saturday and just let them play. So that'd be awesome. I'm a huge fan of anthologies, so this one's right up my alley. All right, let's do endorsements. Whatever it is that's going on this week that we think you should check out. And Julia, do you have anything to share with us?
Well, I know Tony and Drew have already endorsed Captain America, so we're going to have to go check that out this weekend, too. That comes out for the rest of us normal mortals who don't have special privileges. And then, I don't know, Mad Men is coming back, so I'm excited about that. I've been enjoying the Jimmy Fallon television show, the new Tonight Show. I mean, I thought of it because Captain America was on there. Yeah. It was so funny. Chris Evans there was his brother. Oh, my God, that was hilarious. Anyway, so if you're not watching the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, check it out.
Very cool. Tony, did you have any endorsements this week?
I'm trying to think. I did see a really crazy movie that, and perhaps I'm too much of a shill for Draft House Films, but the fact that I know these people as well as they're releasing cool stuff. I watched, I joined the Draft House Alliance, where you get sent their DVD release, Blu-ray releases or DVD as they come out, and then you can also, they'll send you, hey, we're going to have a screening here. You're a Draft House Alliance member, so we're going to send you this first. So that's really cool, just the Draft House Alliance thing. But I saw The Visitor, which is just a weird movie. It's so strange, and everybody in the extras just talks about how crazy the director was and everything like that. And it's kind of sci-fi, but also sort of like this little girl's pretty much the demon child. If you watch the child grow up, like basically Rosemary's Baby, it would be this little girl. And, oh, man, it is so just bizarre and strange. But I think it's worth checking out. It's like from 79. And also the extras, Lance Henriksen is in it. And his commentary is pretty much Shelley Winters is in it. Sam Peckinpah. John Huston is awesome in this movie. But it's just so weird to see all these people in. When did this
movie come out?
It's 79.
79.
And it's so weird, too, because Lance Henriksen is pretty much like, yeah, that movie was terrible. I can't believe I was in this. I had to pay the bills.
Shelley Winters? Is this the one that ends in the big sort of water treatment plant thing?
Yeah, well, it's like, there's an alien, but is it good? It's crazy. But
does it have Morticia Addams in it as well?
I didn't think so.
I think I know the movie you were talking about.
Yeah, it's if you look it up, but it's released on Blu-ray through Draft House Films, and there's a little bit of extras there too, and it's really bizarre, but it's actually I had a lot of fun watching it, and I think it's cool that the crew there is championing these kind of just crazy films. And I also, and on a separate note, it's really, really hard to find VHS that a friend of mine happened to show, and we were so surprised because we were just like, oh, let's try this. But it's a movie called Go for Broke, and there's also a war movie called Go for Broke. This is not that. This is a Japanese film from like '85, where a roving band of street punks, biker gang, attacks this one school every 6 months. And so the people in the school decide to hire a bunch of really awesome chicks to fight. And one's a wrestler, one used to be a biker girl, one uses razors in her hand to fight the punks,
That sounds awesome.
And it's by a guy who used to do a bunch of like pinky violence films, which were kind of, X-rated, R-rated, high R-rated movies in Japan. They call them pink films because they often contain a lot of nudity and sex. And it's the director, and so many good shots, but it's hard to find. So it's another one of those like, hey, good luck if you can find it. But this movie, Go for Broke, I was pretty impressed at just how, because it's not the best movie, but like I said, some of the shots he gets are just like, wow, great stuff. The dubbing is by the people who did a lot of, like, I recognize the voices from a lot of kind of not so great anime dubbing from back in the day, and I can't believe that somebody like decided that this would be the movie to bring over the States before a lot of like anime, before it became cool Japan, Yeah. And so somebody took a gamble on like, hey, well, there's this movie Go for Broke. Let's see if that'll work in the U.S. Let's dub it, So that's my long-winded, nostalgia-ridden, but also really cool.
No, that's wonderful.
Check out Go for Broke if you can find it. I'll post the trailer, and yeah, it's good. Very surprising.
Very cool. Wow. All right. So I don't have a lot of endorsements right now, other than Ben 10 Volume 1 comes out next month, so you can now order it on Amazon. And I hope you do, because and likewise, you should check out the Clockworks app for the Humanoids app and get Clockworks, and I think they're offering a significant discount on the first one.
Oh yeah, well it's like $12. It's like $6 a piece because it's in 2 separate parts digitally.
Right.
So, and then there's a deal going on until the end of April where you get like a rebate on buying a volume 1 of anything, and it's pretty significant if the email blast is correct. I think it's like $25 or something.
Yeah, that was
really awesome.
What I read as well. So,
and there's a lot of, like, it's not just Clockworks. There's a lot of good stuff. Like, I was looking at it, and I was pretty psyched at everything. I don't have an iPad, unfortunately, but if I did, you can read a lot of comics there, really good ones. So
we'll be sure and post a link then to that. Yeah, and it's funny. I've been watching a lot of stuff, researching for my book, and I won't bother endorsing half of the stuff I've been watching because you never know what any of that is. But I did watch Queen of Outer Space, and this movie blew me away. So I have a double endorsement here. Queen of Outer Space, starring Zsa Zsa Gabor, is literally one of the weirdest science fiction movies I've ever seen, and it was such a delight. It's like 1958 or 59, and these astronauts are heading into orbit, and they get hijacked by a tractor beam and taken to Venus, which is a world of women where all the men have been forced off planet, so they throw themselves at the astronauts. And Zsa Zsa Gabor, yes, the Hungarian accented Zsa Zsa Gabor, is the head scientist who wants to overthrow the evil, bejeweled mask-wearing queen. And it is a crazy, crazy color movie that it blew my mind. And I learned about it from a book called Yesterday's Tomorrows by Bruce Wright, which I love. It's one of my favorite books about movies. Yesterday's Tomorrows is just basically every 2-page spread shows a giant science fiction poster, and the writer both critiques the poster and also critiques the movie. So it's ostensibly a poster collection book, and it has awesome color reprints of all these posters, but it also includes really funny reviews of the movie. So that's my recommendation is go check out Queen of Outer Space, and there's no hurry because it's been waiting for you for half a century. And also check out Yesterday's Tomorrows, which is where I found out about it. So, all right. Thank you very much for being here.
Do I not get any endorsements this week?
Oh, my God. I'm so sorry, Drew. I apologize. Yes, of course, please. I feel terrible.
You should.
I'm really, really, really sorry.
We've
I was
been
thinking, I was like, did we hear Drew's endorsement? Did I just miss that?
Yes, please.
Well, I want to repeat, go to Comixology and please download the Halloween Man versus Hack Slash special. It's got the original crossover. It's got another story that's kind of like a sequel to it. That's, I believe, 70 pages. It's only $1.99. Tell your friends about it. Please pollute Twitter and Facebook. And for all 5 of you who are still using MySpace, post about it on MySpace. And just all over your social media, please let people know, because this is the start of a flood of Halloween Man stuff that is going to be on Comixology, brought to you by myself and Monsterverse. I also would like to get a plug-in for my wife's band. As always, this weekend is the 13th annual Lone Star Roundup here in Austin, which is a rockabilly festival and car show. And they are going to be playing at the Gypsy Lounge on Sunday, starting at 8 o'clock for free, with the Grammy-nominated Ruby Dee and the Snake Handlers. So it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful show, and it won't cost you a dime.
Wow.
As far as what I've been getting into lately, I am a latecomer into the world of Breaking Bad. So I've been watching that. It's all up on Facebook, although I think I've been lied to, because everybody kept telling me, people kept telling me that this is a drama when it is also very clearly intended to be a comedy.
Yeah, it's
because
hilarious.
I agree.
It's a dark comedy for sure. I mean,
It's
one of my top 5 favorite shows of all time. It's such a great show.
The stuff where where they're trying to destroy the body, but instead they destroy the bathtub and the floor beneath it.
Well, of course they do. Well, they don't. No, they destroy the body just fine. They just also destroy the bathtub and the floor.
No, but it drops like a rack of lamb.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Aaron Paul and Bryan Cranston are just a great comedic duo, and I think I would have watched it a lot sooner if I had, I like crime stuff, but I it's
and also, Drew, you got to watch the outtakes. The outtakes are so funny for that show.
Really?
I'll have to find them. I did find somebody did a matchup between the Dukes of Hazzard and Breaking Bad, which is on YouTube, and I should probably post that. But everything, what I was not lied to about is the show is, of course, wonderful, and there's a lot of good acting and story writing, but it is definitely funny.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, those are great endorsements, and I really apologize again. I was not trying to skip over you.
Don't lie, Jason. You're like, that guy.
No, I'm gonna
sound of his voice
all week.
No.
So, all right. Now let me say this. Thank you guys for joining us once again. We'll be back next week with a movie that we haven't yet announced, but it will be truly awesome, and it will be on Netflix, and Tony is going to be the one responsible for bringing it to us.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have any more thoughts about Tales from the Darkside or anything else that we talk about here, come to the Facebook page for the Castle of Horror podcast. Let us know. Like us on Facebook. Give us reviews on iTunes. Tell your friends. All of that. So we want to hear from you. We absolutely, really want to hear from you and converse with you. So thanks all, and have a fantastic week. Thanks, guys, for being on, and I'll see you next week.
Night, Tom Boy.
Night.
Night.